Welcome to episode 3, Noon, of the podcast.
Yeah, thanks.
So
Great
what are
to
we
be here.
calling it? What are we calling it this week?
It's undecided presently. I think
Un,
undecided presently.
what about like undecidable, what was it? Instances.
Yeah, disallow undecidable instances.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, what have you been up to?
Um, yeah, what have I been up to? I mean, this week I've kind of been looking. I think the thing that I did programming wise was try to use this library called Clash,
Mhm.
and Clash is a little library for doing FPGA programming. And I've just been trying to find. I think I found some comments somewhere that like all these kind of hardware programming people, like there's no kind of GitHub where they're all sharing their little Verilog code and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like the hardware programming world is a little bit, you know, I don't know what the word is, but it's a little bit more of a wild west maybe than the kind of, and we all know the programming world is very smooth.
Because there's the 3D printing have like Thingiverse, right? Which is kind of like
Yeah,
uh,
that's right.
they need a yeah
Thingiverse.
VHDL hub or something.
Reverse. Yeah, exactly. So that would be really handy. But then I was trying to like understand like what even like just trying to get the basics of what is going on in these things, but there's kind of too many acronyms, frankly, at
Mm.
the moment. So I managed to get kind of two things working. One was like, well, there's a button on this little device and you can press the button, and then what you're supposed to do is there's a little LED on the little device.
Mhm.
And so maybe if one was really careful, one could, like, the point is when you press the button, some electrons are flowing through somewhere. And what you can do is you can, like, let those electrons flow all the way to the LED.
Uh,
And it turns out if you do that, then the LED turns on. And so
via electron.
I'm fairly sure. Might have to revisit my understanding of physics.
It
But
sounds interesting. Yeah.
the point is, that's cool, and you can do
Mm.
that simply with an like an equals statement. You basically
Right.
say the button equals the LED, and that kind of wires them together.
That's cool.
And because someone, I think the standard story some people say about FPGAs is that they're fast,
Mhm.
but someone was kind of saying like, and I think my understanding at this point is that all these FPGAs have some kind of clock cycle, and like you can do something every nanosecond or much faster.
Mhm.
But the point is, when you do this assignment thing, well, everything happens. Well, I don't know if it happens on the clock cycle or faster, because it's kind of. I think that actually doesn't happen on the clock cycle. That kind of
Mhm.
just always happens.
Yeah, that's like wired up at that point.
Exactly. And so then I did the next thing, which is like blink 1 second. So I got both of those done in Clash, and that was, you know, kind of fun. And then I was trying to do the next thing, which is there's a little NeoPixel, and you can have
Mhm.
which you can have instead of just like on or off, you can have multiple colors. Um,
That's very cool.
and the bottom line is that required me to understand these things called clocks, and that's where I gave up. So I'm gonna might revisit it, but that's where that's where I'm at presently.
Well, it's not so bad.
It's not bad, but I did spend a significant portion of my time because WebFPGA is the platform that I'm using.
So it's
And
is it a real FPGA or is it like you just
yeah,
send
yeah.
instructions?
No, it's a real FPGA. I'll even whoops. I'll even I'll get it and I'll show it to you.
So what's the web then?
Yeah, let me explain what the web part is. So let me just get my headphones back. Got a bit excited.
We both got our cats.
Yeah, you've got a cat. I've got a cat over here. Can you? Where's my cat? Can you see it?
Yeah,
There you
there
go.
she is.
Hello. Um, so here it is. This is it.
Right.
That's right. And so the web part is that apparently there's this thing called Web USB. Have you heard of that?
No.
So this is the little Web FPGA device.
Mhm.
Um, and Web USB is something that lets browsers talk to USB devices.
Right.
I didn't realize that's possible, but it is possible.
That's very interesting and scary.
Yeah, yeah. Presently, you need approval from the user to do that, but I'm sure that won't last long.
Yeah.
Um, and so the mate that put together the Web FPGA Kickstarter, he made a little web IDE,
Mhm.
which is
Oh, I
actually
get
really
it. Right.
cool. So
Yeah.
you can kind of do your little FPGA programming in his little web IDE and compile it and flash your device and everything, and it all just works.
Mhm.
And it uses this big kind of open source tool chain. So there's a whole tool chain for kind of compiling Verilog down to FPGA devices because there's actually many, many steps involved.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Um,
And he just kind
and
of like makes all that super easy because it's all in the web.
exactly. And so then I decided that obviously I must replicate that on my own computer because I can't, because maybe his website will go away.
It might.
So then I spent a day trying to get all that to run through various Docker images and so on my computer,
Mhm.
and I got
Fun
it working.
times.
That
Wow.
was
Wow. That's
really
great.
surely a great use of my time.
I guess today is going to be a short session, hey, because you've got to shoot off soon.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. What have you been
Yeah.
up to?
Um, I've been doing all sorts of stupid, annoying things, but like one of the most stupid and most annoying is that I'll share my screen with you,
Oh, okay.
and then I'll show you. That's not what I want. How do I share again? Oh, yeah, there we go, share. And hopefully it's going to share the right screen. Can you see my screen?
I can see myself presently.
Uh, I have to click allow. There we go. Oh, yeah, can you see like a terminal now?
Now I can. Yes, perfect.
Okay, cool. Well, it's on the right one. Great. Yeah, so now if I just find where I put this project I was working on. Uh, there we go. So back here. There we go. So I I just kind of like had this thought to do it, which was uh, is like I wanted why you always gotta like have three different combinators to do your function composition, right? Like
Mm,
depending on the arity of your functions. I was like, shouldn't you just have one? And
yes.
so I was like, well, if you have a class and then you have overlapping instances, then you should kind of be able to do something like this. And the idea, I think, is sound. This was not correct, as you can see by the comment. Wrong. Um, and so then I asked someone, and they said, "Oh, someone already did this over here in this gist." Um, and it's inspired by how that Ramda library does it in JavaScript.
Yeah, I've never
Um,
used Ramda.
yeah, so JavaScript is easy because you just kind of get all of your arguments, even if they're positional, as your arguments.
Yes.
Um, there's a variable called arguments in scope, and so it's easy. And then you can just apply them or whatever. So
Oh, I see.
that's composition is no problem.
Yes.
But to do that style, what this person has done is they don't actually do composition at all. They kind of do application, and so it bottoms out at actually applying a value to a function, and then like when you apply another function to the function, then it actually composes them, right? And
Yeah.
so then it's kind of recursive in that regard here in this type class reference.
Yeah.
And so that's cool. But like the problem with that is actually you need to be able to apply a value at some point. And I
Yes.
didn't care to do that because I wanted true composition so that I could abstract it into like a category instance rather than having to use a function, right? No one wants
Yes.
to use a function.
No.
Like I want to use a Mealy machine or something.
Yeah.
And so I had another go at trying to do it using composition, and it doesn't work. But at least after reading their implementation, I got to a point where I'm like, this should work, but it doesn't. So that's why I mean it's so dumb because like even after the second attempt and all that trying, it still doesn't work. But
What goes wrong?
yeah, so if I comment out like higher arity composition like that, then oops, you'll see it does actually compile, which is nice. But then if I go to like do this add function, it will complain. It's somehow trying to like pass a function to the function that it's composing it with,
I
which
see.
is, not what it should be doing. But I'll
Yeah.
walk you through like what it is because it took
Yeah.
me a while to get this, and I tried a lot of different approaches to try and figure out how you should implement this thing.
Mm.
And so like one thing that I've since discovered after reading the other person's implementation is actually when you try and do a class like this, you don't want to kind of have all the parameters in the class representing the actual parameters of the objects that are being manipulated in the class. So for example, up here, like here's my class with all these variables and
Mm-hmm.
all like and those represent the kind of inputs and outputs
Yes.
of
Yeah.
of each of these,
Yeah.
functions or categories. That's
Yeah.
too much detail. You kind of only really need three class parameters here,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
the things that are being composed together rather than the
Yeah.
internal stuff. And if you
Yeah.
need the internal stuff, you can get at it, but you get at it inside the instance, right?
Yeah.
Or the instance definition rather than inside the class definition. So
I,
that's why this kind of starts out wrong,
trick
which is
number one.
great.
Yeah.
Then what you kind of want to do is like on your kind of instance, you want to define that's where you can introduce like the actual kind of instance parameters of your class. So if it's a function like inputs and outputs or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But what you can't do on your kind of instance is use unification at this point. So you can't say like, you know, um, B goes to B prime and B prime goes to A, and then that
Yeah.
makes B go to A. You can't
Why?
like
Why can't
put
you
a
do that?
variable in more than one place at this point.
Yeah.
You're just not allowed.
Okay.
So theoretically, you could have a language that does that for you, but you can't there. So
Oh,
you
okay.
just do use unique variables at this point here,
Yeah.
and then on the left-hand side is where you say where they're equal,
I see. Yeah.
and kind of more importantly here, you say where the kind of recursive um, combinator or class instance lies. So in this case, I've said, well, I've kind of got my base case instance here that works on regular old functions, and then what I've got up here is my recursive case for higher arity functions. And so what
Yeah.
I'm going to say is like, well, imagine we kind of have the previous case where these things that are returned are functions. Well, if we had that, like B prime, A, B prime, and C prime, then we say, well, we've already got an instance for A, B prime, and C prime here.
Yes.
So we can use that recursively here.
Yeah.
Um, but in addition to that, we've tacked on these extra arguments, B and C.
Yeah.
And in this case, B equals C
Yeah.
because it's the same argument, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna have a higher arity function here in your kind of second function. It's got one more
Mm-hmm.
argument,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll lambda abstract that argument here, and so it becomes the same argument on the function that you're actually returning. after you've
Mm-hmm.
done the composition. So kind of like thinking about it like that, and especially naming these variables like this was actually really useful in understanding that.
Mm.
Another way that I found it's like often like trying to write this part is quite tricky. And so what I've found is like quite useful is if you do like a comment above um, your definition here, and then you say just kind of line it up, and then you write it out as if you were kind of unifying at this point. So you'd go, A goes to whatever, B, and B goes to Z, and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Z goes to C or something like that, then you can
Mm-hmm.
just kind of look up and down and see what the equivalences should be, and then just
Mm-hmm.
paste them in over here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
I
that's
see. I
quite
see.
neat, quite a little neat little trick. So I mucked around with that for ages, and in the end, it doesn't work. So I'm curious. I've asked like if anyone knows why, but like I'm curious because when I read this, it reads okay to me. I guess the only thing I can think of is it's like it never actually attempts to use this instance, and it's only using this instance,
What
which
is an
could be
incoherent?
possible. Well, because these instances are kind of like overlapping instances, and
Yeah.
what I'd kind of heard is that if you have an incoherent instance, it'll kind of be the last one that it tries. So it'll just keep applying this one, and then finally it'll do that one if it can't succeed, or something like that.
Oh, I
Which
see.
is, it's works as an algorithm, but I think in terms of like whatever formalism surrounds type classes, it doesn't quite work out if you do it that way. But who gives a crap?
Yeah,
We're
I see.
programmers, not
Yeah,
not
that's true.
abstract algebraists or something.
Yeah, that's true.
That's my understanding. But you can actually implement it with overlappable instances, which is meant to be a little more
Is that
robust.
what you
But
were using above?
yeah, I used that here. But I
Yeah,
think that isn't where it's failing anyway. So I'm not sure. But once I find out, I'll let you know.
yeah,
But, so that was fun. Um, oops, get out of there. Then the other thing I've got to do is give this talk on Thursday about the reanimate library. So I've been having a little
yeah,
look at that. Not not ready yet, that's for sure. And then just work.
yeah, yeah. I've been as always, I'm kind of just trying to play my little Go game. So I've been playing Go and then trying to balance like the desire to get better with the desire to not lose.
Mm.
And that's frustrating because like you want to win all the games, but you're never going to get better if you win all the games. Like you got to play until you learn something. So that's been
That
like,
is true.
you know what I mean.
How do I stop
uh,
sharing my screen? There we go.
should be you've done it.
Got it.
Yeah. And then um I don't know what else I've been doing really. Like I think I'm kind of presently at this stage where I've got like too many projects
Mm.
ideas and it's too hard to start any particular one.
Mm.
So I think like what I decided to do yesterday was I got a bunch of random hard drives with stuff on them. So I was like, I'm going to copy all the stuff off these hard drives.
Why not? Yeah.
So I did that. That was a pretty good use of time.
Nice.
Um,
Oh, the other thing I did is I got my did I tell you about that little mouse pad idea?
yeah,
Um,
I think so.
so I've got
Yeah,
like a Apple trackpad, and
yeah,
that sometimes like it's fun to be able to move that separately from my keyboard and use all of the numpad on my giant Apple super keyboard. But other times I kind of like it to be connected to the keyboard so I can move both around at once and it takes up a little bit less room. And
yeah, yeah.
so what I did is I've got skewers which lie between the
Pretty
rows
hard.
of keys on the numpad, and little
Yeah,
rubber rubber bands on the end, and they then kind of allow you to put anything of around that size on top of your keypad,
I
which
like that.
is it angers and infuriates some people, which is great because they're like,
Yeah,
why would you ever get rid of your numpad? Numpads rule, fool. And
yeah,
actually, I do agree with that sentiment, but I've just got to compromise and make
yeah,
some space sometimes. But
yeah.
the change was I used string before, which sucks. And now I've used rubber bands, which is much superior. I actually
Yeah,
originally wanted to like 3D print a little gizmo that you could put there. And I think
yeah.
actually that would be much cooler because it could have little clips or something to hold on to the
Do you have a 3D
thing.
printer?
Nah, but I was
No.
gonna just find someone who did and tell them to print it or like
Yeah,
make the
yeah,
design. And I still
yeah,
think that's a good idea because I reckon maybe people would buy that, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
it's useful enough and it's simple enough.
yeah, yeah. Well, I was,
Why
I
not?
was
Why
just,
not?
I was just watching that TV show actually that was talking about these people that made the add-ons for the arcade machines,
Yeah, I watched that.
and that's how they made heaps of money when they were in whatever. And
Mrs.
that's like, oh,
Pac-Man or whatever.
yeah, Mrs. Pac-Man. That's right.
That was pretty cool, that show.
So I like that idea to kind of building some little mods for different stuff and
Yeah,
using
why
them.
not? If it's
Yeah,
easy enough, then what's the downside? You get sued, I guess, is what happened to
yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah. Lawyers can't serve you at the moment
But
anyway,
yeah,
right? Only
I
if they lose
believe the
5K.
outcome was that they all made millions of dollars.
Yeah, that was my understand my understanding as well.
All right, deal. Yeah, if I can find someone with a 3D printer to make a couple of prototypes, then I guess I can sell it.
I think yeah, and the only other idea that I had this week that's been like a lot. I might have told you this dream ages ago, which is like I, you know how you have your computer, right, and it has windows,
Hmm.
and you maybe got your text editor here and your stupid terminal here, or your web browser there, and some other thing there.
Yeah.
But like you also have cool pictures on your computer,
Hmm.
that you'd like to look at.
Oh yeah.
And the point is like, how can you look at those pictures while also living your regular computer life? You
You
know,
need a whole other computer, surely.
you need a whole other computer, but like, who's going to plug in a whole other screen just to watch a screensaver? Like maybe some real rich people, but like not the likes of us.
Yeah,
We can not
no,
until the podcast takes off. So
that's
the
right.
point is like, what can you do in the meantime? And like, I've had this dream where I could have like a kind of like a museum version of my window manager where
Hmm.
like it would display my text editor here, but it would display a painting up in the top right. And I
Why
could
not?
never
Yeah,
remove the painting. That's just part of my daily life, until like the curator
yeah,
decides to like change what I'm seeing.
yeah, yeah,
And I think
totally.
like that's been my dream since forever. And then another related idea that I had just last week was like a similar idea is like, well, everyone has interfaces that they use to control things,
They sure do.
but like those interfaces are always functional, like they're
Terrible.
never interesting.
That's right.
Right? And so it's like, well, there's really no reason for that. Like,
Why
why
can't
should that?
anything be an interface, in my
Exactly,
opinion?
that's right, exactly. But anything, and also any part of that thing, which is
Yes.
like, go back to the photos again, and like imagine you like photos of landscapes, but you also want to control something on a scale from 1 to 100, like a volume.
You do, yeah.
It's like, well, what if you scrolled on your little landscape photo and it turned from like autumn to winter,
Mm,
and then your volume also changed,
yeah,
right?
I
This is
like it.
just
Yeah,
technically no reason that we shouldn't have that.
I
Is my
agree.
understanding.
That
And like,
reminds me of like that Andrew Sorensen's crazy like physics aquarium thing where he was changing all sorts of parameters. And
Oh yeah, I've never seen that in real life.
yeah, that
Yeah, I
was
think that's
cool.
what I want. I think that's exactly what I want.
Mm, yeah, that sounds real good.
Yeah.
It also reminds me of I watched a lot of stupid car reviews, and one of them, one of these cars that you could buy has, like a dashboard, and then it has a dedicated section of the dash called a gallery, where you can have paintings installed.
Is that real?
Yeah, and a clock or something as well. Like it's
Okay.
just an area to have various additional expensive items installed in your car, just in case.
That's great. Yeah, that's exactly that idea. They did it in a car.
It's been a while since I've used Linux, but isn't one of those like image viewing programs you can set it to like slideshow mode and then it'll
Yeah,
cycle through images?
yeah. But what I want is I want the window to be a kind of like all our computer program, like all our window managers. They always treat the entire monitor space as a windowable area.
Oh,
So it's
right.
like
So this is
if
like,
something's in the top right, you can drag it to the left or
yeah,
something.
this is a locked down
Exactly.
area.
Exactly. So it's kind of like it is pretty easy to achieve if you don't want that constraint.
Hmm.
But obviously I want to kind of like feel what's the word? Powerless to change. Like I'm living in a gallery, right? That's the
Yeah.
point. Is like I live in the gallery. I have to obey the rules of the gallery. I have
Hmm.
to enjoy the photo.
But
That's
you may not touch the photo.
you can't touch the photo because you're not the curator. You're just passing by.
Uh-huh. Oh, I love it. That's great.
Yeah. So maybe that's something.
Maybe, maybe. Yeah, I reckon. Why not? It'd be fun to try and hack that into an existing window manager. Surely, like that's got to be
Yeah,
quite annoying to do.
that was my discovery, but I didn't look at it for a super long time. But
Maybe
that's
not.
one
How do
thing.
like those taskbar like those people implement that somehow, don't they? Where it works within
Oh
the
yeah, the
existing window
taskbar.
manager, but it's
Yeah,
not
that's
a
true.
window.
That's true.
Maybe there's facilities for doing something like that already.
Yeah, I think you're not wrong. To be fair, I know like the window manager I use has a little rule where you can kind of like you can say this window should persist on every screen. Um, I guess you could then just give it a location and then. But I think the real hard part would be like allocating the space around it,
Mhm.
which is like I guess if you want it in the borders, that would be easy. But what if you wanted it in the center of the screen?
Mm.
Then it's like, is your window manager going to be able to kind of like leave the other regions around it as allocatable regions? Maybe that's possible. Maybe that's even easy.
What you need is like a more powerful abstraction than simply like Windows, right? Like you want to have a physics engine, right? So you can be
Yes,
like,
I agree. Yeah.
rather than, oh, well, this is a region, here's the boundaries of stuff. It's like, no, this is a wall, and you can't move your window through that because of collision detection.
Yeah.
Unless it's big and heavy enough, then you can smash through that wall.
Yeah, yeah. No, you make a very good point. I think all the window managers are sorely lacking in physics, physics, physics engine.
And
That's
then
a
you could
great.
like bounce them around and
Yeah,
what
yeah,
other
yeah.
what other stuff can you do in physics? Maybe light things on fire,
Well, you could break them apart, and
break them
light them
apart.
on fire. Yeah, exactly.
You can maybe sublimate a window into a gas.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that'd be a nice way to close the program.
Definitely. Each kind of atom of the gas has to retain the material properties that it came from that part of the
Yeah,
window.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I think the best
perfect.
part about it is it'd be very intuitive. I think people would really, you know, because it'd be a lot like having it like on your physical desk, like all these different things. And that's the
Hmm.
analogy we're always given, right? Is like a window manager is like arranging things on a desk.
Yeah, yeah. I watched this video. There was this guy who I watch sometimes. What's his name? But it's called like Applied Physics or something like that on YouTube.
Yeah.
And he's always doing experiments. Like he makes his own microscope, and then he makes his own little, cathode ray tube, and all sorts of cool
I
things
might have
like
seen
that.
this guy. Yeah.
Um, and one thing he did was he made a vacuum tube. Yeah, he's called Applied Science. One thing he did was he made holograms in chocolate, which was his most popular video. Um, but what I
Oh,
was
yeah, you
watching,
told me about this. Yeah.
yeah, what I was watching is he made his own little vacuum setup. He
Yeah.
needed to get all the gas out of something, so he made a vacuum. And he had a hell of a time trying to get this thing to work, not because like his special pump wasn't working, um, and not because of the seals or anything. It was just because various things inside the chamber degas is what the term is, and start releasing gas. And you'd be surprised. The smallest thing releases huge amounts of gas
Yeah.
and ruins his experiment. And it took
Yeah.
him ages to figure out that it was this degassing that was causing the issue.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think we're out of time. Do you
I
need to
think we
make a
are. Yeah.
move?
Yeah. Let's do it. Well, like next time, I reckon let's come up with like a, let's do something crazy next
Hmm.
episode.
Yeah. Back on Friday again?
Back on Friday. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We could do like a reaction video or something like that. We could
Or try
react.
and get a third person involved or something.
We could do an interview. Yeah, that's great.
Oh,
That's
I
great.
like that. A double, it's like a double interview. It's like
Okay, let's do it.
you invite a guest on for like a radio style interview, but then you fake them out because it's a trick. And it's
Yeah.
actually like it's like a job interview. And it's very annoying.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to annoy someone. That would be great.
We'll get the highest profile person we can get.
Yeah, that'll respond to our email.
So, Bill Gates, it says you have a lot of experience.
Tell us, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Mhm.
All right, that sounds
All
good.
right. Well, I'll
Catch
catch
you
you on
next.
Friday.